Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Ryan Smith, and we are here with Modex Network Voices. Today we have an expert, Laurie Robert from NRB, and she will be talking to us about her experience in the industry over an entire career. As usual, I'm joined by my partner, Ivan Rupnik. Ivan, like to say hi?
Hey Ryan, everybody.
Thanks for joining us again, Ivan. And Laurie Robert is here now on the screen. Laurie, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join the Modex community today.
Laurie, as I've mentioned, has been in the industry a long time. I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more, but I was introduced to Laurie first off when she was a chair of the MBI Foundation and Education Foundation. And Laurie, at that time, you were working heavily on some board initiatives that have come to fruition. And so Laurie's not only active in her company, but really leading the industry forward in as they march forward to try and take more of the market and improve in their delivery for buildings. But Laurie, I welcome you, and please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your history, and then we'll get into some questions.
Sure, thank you. Thanks very much again. So a little bit of background on me and how I even got into this business. I've been with NRB now for over 30 years, but actually I began my career just a little while before that with a fleet leasing company. So I started in the business in the portable side of the business for probably about a year or so. During that time, I met NRB as we were doing some procurement from them as a manufacturer affordable classrooms, and I got to know the owners and I got to know the product. And I remember the first time they shipped a product to my fleet leasing company, it came with no wheels, and that may not seem significant at the moment, but trust me, it was my instant delineation between permanent types of modular construction and mobile. Anyway, I moved to NRB shortly after, and I began to develop a sales department for them. So sales and marketing department. They were primarily doing portable classrooms at the time, and they were looking to diversify, recognizing that the portable classroom market was not sustainable for any great length of time, and it did tend to follow some cycles. So they were looking to get into different things, new markets, take what they knew and apply it in different areas. So I was helping build that for them. By 1995, we decided to join the Modular Building Institute, which prior to that was called the Mobile Modular Office Association. In doing so, it allowed us to explore what was being done by other companies, because we realized that it was very difficult to be able to push a product forward or push an idea forward to a market when you didn't have any history or you didn't have any case studies, you didn't have anything to show. And that still is actually very true today. So we joined the Modular Building Institute, we started to attend annual conventions, and we literally looked at all different types of building applications that people were doing there. So from that, I actually ended up joining the board of directors as I would hang around different regional meetings to learn more and more about the industry and what everyone was doing. Joined the board of directors for the MBI in 1997. I became the president of the MBI in 2001, and then I ended up in the Hall of Fame in 2017. So I've had quite a run with the MBI and the industry collaboration of those experience. Currently, I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for NRB in Grimsby, Ontario. NRB is a 41-year-old company now, and in 2019, the owners sold the company to a company called Horizon North Logistics out of Calgary, Alberta. Horizon North Logistics has two divisions. One is camps and catering, so the industrial side, and the other is Modular Solutions. Modular Solutions covers all kinds of permanent modular construction products and projects at this point, but they specialize in housing, and they are predominantly a wood frame builder. NRB, on the other hand, handles more of the ICI market, so we're more industrial, commercial, institutional, and typically more in the steel and concrete side of the market in PMC today. But the combination of the two, or the blending of the two companies, the synergies that came together were quite incredible. And now it's made us a very large company with a lot of inroads into everything from ICI and housing And then in May 2020 this year, we also merged with another company called Dextera, who is a very large facilities operation company. So that's kind of us, and we are very, now we're geographically, we're quite large. We are very focused on permanent modular construction in a whole variety of marketplaces at this point.
That's really great, Laurie. And I mean, you've seen the full spectrum where modular in the United States really grew out of a relocatables industry, right? And now has,
Yes.
permanent modular has become really a significant market share for Horizon North and your company. So it's wonderful to see that. In that transition, in that time, let's say NRB's been around 41 years, you said, in the time you've been involved.
41, yeah, 41.
Yeah, 33.
Not too many companies can say that.
For 33 years you've been at this. I mean, how has the industry changed, and what do you see is going on currently, and what excites you about what's happening?
Looking at the industry from within, as I do, it's been probably one of the most fascinating evolutions in the past 30 years. I'm often asked why I've never left, why I'm still here. I mean, not too many people stay with their company for 30 plus years. But you know what, it's just an exciting industry to be in, and it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. So if I were to go back into, rolling from the 80s into the 90s, I would say that the modular building industry was essentially a portable building industry. I mean, that's really the roots of where this business came from. Throughout the 90s, there was definitely a positive push by kind of a handful of companies. And I alluded to that when I was talking about us joining the MBI in 1995. We were sort of shadowing, stalking some of these companies down there and forming some relationships with them. So we got to learn more about their business models and how they were just promoting permanent modular construction back then. So by the 90s, there was a lot of movement of a core group of companies, including us, to try and move the modular building industry from the portable side to the permanent side. And really it was more of a branching out from the other, because relocatable buildings are still a very important part of the modular building industry, and they serve an enormous amount of needs today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But permanent modular construction is a little different. So the design, the sophistication, the challenges that come with that were somewhat different than we were finding, obviously, in the portable building side. So literally, we basically branched out, and this occurred, I would say, over the 90s. By the time we were getting into 2000s, a lot of this was still occurring, and the industry understood. We all understood who we were. So I would say that there was probably an identity crisis going on, but the identity crisis was not probably so much within the industry itself. We understood what we were trying to accomplish, and some companies took one approach and some companies took the other in terms of whether they wanted to go portable or permanent, and some just did both. The identity crisis, I think, was more in the market. It was very difficult for us to sell a permanent modular product or project to a market that considered us a portable building supply industry. So that became very difficult. Funny story, I mean, I was trying to negotiate a project with a quick service restaurant here back in the 90s. And I had nothing in my portfolio because we were just trying to launch into this. I knew that some of these companies in the States were doing great work. And so we all knew it was possible. And so they just basically blew me off a little bit and said, that's a portable building. That's not what we do. And so kind of gave up. And about a year later, I picked up the phone, and they called saying, we've got this really good idea. You do modular construction. And clearly it was just because the owner had gone to the US and he had seen a project that he loved. And he knew it was modular. And so it proved to him it could be done. Then they brought it back, and now the idea was theirs. And this is how it all rolls forward. So we ended up doing about 35 projects for them. But they had the idea. It's very difficult to convince someone that you have the expertise and the wherewithal to do the project when you don't have the backup, you don't have the research, and you don't have a lot of case studies. So the 90s was very challenging in that way, really push the needle or move the needle forward in permanent modular construction. I would say then by the 2010 to 2013. Well, actually, let me back up. 2011 to me, and I will say this, I've done presentations almost all of my 30 years, whether it's industry training or lunch and learns or conferences and seminars.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say out of all of my time, we had more significant projects in the design, spec, and scope than we had in portable buildings. My projects that I was presenting on, we would be talking early on about what modular construction was. So you kind of could phase it. What is modular construction? That was what the market wanted to know. What is it? What are you trying to sell me? What are you trying to show me? Eventually, the what then became a why. Why am I looking at modular construction? What are the benefits? Okay, I get the what, but now I need to understand why I'm going to be looking at modular construction instead of conventional construction. And today, really, we're sitting at what I would consider the how. It's the how and the who. How do you engage with modular construction? And this kind of brings us to today's lessons in terms of what we're trying to deal with the marketplace. For the most part, they understand what modular construction is, PMC is today. They understand the benefits for the most part, but a lot of people don't know how to work with it. It's a very different process. So that's sort of the teachings that we do at this point. But 2011, going back there, was probably a pivotal year. That's the year that the McGraw-Hill published the first prefabrication and modularization research paper product. And from that point, it was an independent study. And from that point, it just seemed to me that there was a lot more interest, a lot more media coverage in PMC, modular construction, a lot more people interested and asking questions about what is this? And once again, why am I looking at it? So I would say that was probably pivotal in what started sparking a level of interest. And then what followed was, Ryan, you were involved in several projects, the 5 and 5 initiative, research studies. The Offsite Construction Council ran studies and surveys. And so all of this combined brought the industry to a new level of interest, a new level of excitement. And from there, now we just need to move it forward, understanding that we need to take that market share that modular construction has, which is currently sitting at about 4.5%, up to 10. I mean, the opportunities are there. So, what's stopping us? What's stopping that from happening?
Laurie, this is really fascinating to get a deeper perspective on what's changed. I think two things that kind of come to mind that are related for a company like NRB. And they're both sort of, one has to do with does the pipeline of relocatable projects have a different cycle than the PMC projects, and do those benefit one another? In other words, is one down and another one is up? Or are they about the same in terms of how do they benefit one another? Because you obviously NRB had an established relocatables business that probably helped you in that transition into PMC. So maybe you can talk about that. Do they have a kind of similar logic? Do they, in terms of project, in terms of demand? Yeah.
I think they have different demands. So they are completely different sales cycles. They're completely different market. So we don't really do a lot of portable buildings anymore. We do portable classrooms. That's been a mainstay of ours from the time the company was founded right through to today. We build different types of portable classrooms today than we did years ago, but all the same, we do build portable classrooms. But I would say essentially the sales cycle is significantly less. A lot of the portable buildings, I think even through the United States are leased. So they're rental units. To put it in perspective, you would supply a engineering office, a 2 or 3 section modular building to a construction site as an engineering office while someone was building, a multi-story cancer clinic back in those days, back in the 80s and 90s. Today, those engineering offices are still on the site as portable buildings, but the cancer clinic is also being built in a modular format. So completely different types of projects, completely different types of requirements in terms of how you go at them. And the complexity of the projects, obviously, in PMC is much, much greater. The sales cycle is much, much longer. The design process is longer. It takes a lot to get through the design process because it's a very collaborative effort. And once you get through that, then you have the delivery and installation and the site development. We're in the portable business, you don't really get involved in a lot of that. It's fleet or customized portable buildings as well. But I think the relocatable building industry is still very viable and very strong and very necessary. PMC is just carving out a chunk of the commercial construction market. It's just pulling a share out of what is already designated to be built by some means, conventional or permanent modular construction or panelized or any sort of offsite construction system. So where portable buildings might be more of a product, PMC is more of a project. And there is a definite difference in how long it takes to close a project versus how long to release a product.
And do you find that that's funny, I was going to bring that up as a second question. Do you find that working with clients, do they come, even though they understand that modular is different from relocatables, do they come with a mentality of expectations of modular being more of a product? Or do they understand that it's not quite, I mean, let's say if conventional construction is a process, we know it's a project process, and if relocatables are more of a product, right, and they're leased, so how do client expectations and the reality of PMC align, especially from your perspective, working with the relocatable industry, which is much more of a product in many ways?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that goes back to the identity crisis a little bit. The market, there's two things. I mean, one of the things that I think has held the PMC, the evolution of PMC and the progress and moving that needle has been market perception. I think there's a myth or a mystery about permanent modular construction that a lot of owners and architects in the AECO community, they don't maybe understand fully exactly what is this. Are you trying to tell me that you're going to put some brick on a portable classroom building? What are you trying to tell me? So they come to us with the expectation that instantly we should know a cost, and that seems to be one. And they also come with the question about, is this the same quality? Does this have the same code? If I look at modular construction, what are my expectations? What should my expectations be? So this is where it gets a little bit convoluted when we're trying to delineate between portable and permanent. But there's definitely misconceptions. There's definitely still a mystery that surrounds portable PMC. And it's become, it can get in the way of our growth. We need to educate more. We need to get a lot more owners, architects, and general contractors on board. And there is a huge move to collaboration. You know, by 2015, the past 5 years, it's been incredible to see how much collaboration we have between all the stakeholders in this industry. And that's what it's going to take really to move the needle forward.
Yeah. And you touched on that, Laurie. What needs to happen to move the needle forward is that kind of collaboration, sharing, willingness to partner, willingness to share information and case studies, and trying to improve the delivery process. Speaking specifically about manufacturers, your NRB is a manufacturer, Horizon North is a manufacturer. What do you think that companies can do? Or what, if as much as you can share, what is NRB and Horizon North doing to scale up and skill up to meet the demand of commercial construction and what it wants out of modular as a value proposition? What are you doing as a company? Yeah.
Well, we're the blending of our two companies to begin with made us a pan-Canadian company. So we've scaled up in that regard. We now have 3 plants across Canada, but the scaling up has always been a big question. And we've had this conversation in many conferences. And the question is always, the industry, do they have the capacity and do they have the capability to respond to the needs of the market? And so there's this sort of chicken and egg scenario where I think we're at that cusp. I think the industry, ourselves included, certainly NRB and Horizon North, we're ready to take on a lot of projects. We just need to make sure that the industry is ready to support. So in other words, if you want to build a plant, and if you want to engage new technology and new methods, and if you want to upskill your workforce accordingly, and have all those strategies, you need to know that there's a market there, obviously, right, to support that. And so this is where it's a little bit of, no one's really waiting. We're all ready to go. I would say as the industry, we're at the cusp, we're ready to go. And now it's just a case of, is the market ready to receive? And this is where, you know, this is all of the conferences and what MODEX is all about, right? It's educating people, it's building success stories, building case studies, in order to show the marketplace that it's a hugely viable way to go in construction and get that needle moved off the 5%. We need to get it to 10%. 10% is not a lot when you think about it. So, you know, what's it going to take? It takes a collaborative effort of both industry, the design community, and owners to just pull the resources and move it forward. There's a huge need for housing. I mean, housing is probably one of the biggest challenges we face in North America. Affordable housing, transitional housing, social housing. You know, Horizon North at this point have done well over 600 supportive housing units in Vancouver and BC alone, and we're building a couple of 100 units here in Toronto at the moment. Some of this is as a response to the crisis that COVID has created, right? Nothing can respond faster to the marketplace than offsite construction. And so everyone now is looking at it, and everybody is interested. So I have a feeling we're going to see the needle move. I really believe that. As an industry, I think we've got enough capabilities, and we've got enough, whether we have the capacity, but that's a challenge we can overcome. If it means another plant has to be put up somewhere, then, you know, but if the market is there to serve the plant and everybody's on board, that's an easy fix.
Yeah, you need the volume to justify scaling up. Yep.
Yeah, you need the volume and the scalability. You need the repeatability as well. I mean, there's always been that challenge as we've kind of grown up through the past 30 years where an architect would say to us, yeah, but you can't give me my architectural expression. I can't do anything with boxes, which is completely incorrect, right? You can do all sorts of things in shapes and configurations with modular construction. But this all comes down to the how-to strategy. How do I work with modular construction effectively if I'm an owner or an architect? What do I do? The best practices and strategies are probably where we are now. As I said before, for the most part, everybody understands what modular construction is or PMC is. Some don't, but for the most part, we do. We've done great education. I think we've done great education. Probably we need to do still a lot more. And everyone understands the benefits of it, the speed of construction. But I think where we're missing and what we still need to really push is how do I work with it? The process is different. Roles and responsibilities shift. So that's really the key now, because an architect or an owner could look at a project and say, wow, that's really incredible, but I'm just not sure how to engage. And early commitment, early engagement, as you know, both of you, I'm sure, is a huge part of the success of a project. Collaboration is a huge part of the success of a project to make it go quickly. It's accelerated scheduling requires accelerated thinking. And I think that's where we are now. We need to push that. Quite frankly, I think we're on the verge of really moving the needle if we could just pull this together.
Laurie, thank you very much for joining us today and giving your insights on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure working with you always, you two. So really enjoy what MODEX is doing, and yeah, keep me on your mailing list, because as soon as we can get together in person, I'll be happy to attend.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Laurie. Again, MODEX Network Voices, Laurie Robert, NRB. Really appreciate you joining us today. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Laurie.
Stay safe.